Welcome back, everybody. Again, the Inner Circle podcast. I'm Hector Alvarado. To those of you that know me, a pleasure to meet you here at our call. And those of you that don't know me, well, we'll soon be chatting some more. Today, we're tackling time management for impact and not activity, as we said earlier. But this topic is interesting because it's one of those that makes or breaks your results in how you manage time. And I know we've heard some of the challenges around time. We talked about it last week, but not in the cliche of time management tips, because today we want to show you how to manage time for impact, not activity. Because filling your day with tasks doesn't equal progress. The world doesn't reward effort. Unfortunately, it rewards results, right? So as we think about that, it's important to understand, like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm busy, I'm doing stuff, but what kind of stuff are you doing? So as we go through that, today we're gonna show you some examples, right? So picture this. You're a CEO, most of you wear many hats, you're putting in 70 hours a week, you're bouncing from emails to meetings to putting out a fire drill, right? That's one CEO. That might be you today. But another leader is working 45 hours, but 80% of their time is focused on strategy, relationships, and growth levers. Who wins? The second CEO every time. Why? Because activity doesn't equal impact, right? Take Jeff Weiner, the former CEO of LinkedIn. He blocked out buffers for empty time in his calendar every single day. Why? To think, to prioritize, to make sure that he was operating at the highest level. His team said those buffer blocks transformed LinkedIn. It allowed it to scale. It wasn't because Jeff was buried in tasks, because he was leading, he was strategizing, right? So, as we think about time management, it started to pivot in not the focus of time, but focus on where your time is going. So, Willie, I'll go to you for that, the first trap of busyness that we like to call it, right? Can you think of a time when you were working crazy hours, but looking back, you realized you weren't actually moving the needle? Like, and what did you do to shift it? Like, what worked for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Early in my trucking days, I was putting in 14, 16 hours, and I thought I was being productive. But most of the time I was fighting fires and dealing with emails and drivers' complaints, whatever all. And the shift came when I realized the business wasn't moving forward. Uh, Despite my hours. Once I stepped back and asked which of these actually builds the company, everything changed. I started focusing on big contacts, building systems, and then empowering managers. And that's when I really saw the growth that I could produce when I started focusing on the right things.
And that's exactly what we're going to get into today, right? Is focusing on the right things versus focusing on you putting out the fires and you putting in 14 to 20-hour workdays. You shifted to focus on the right people, the right processes, the right culture. When you focused strategically on the right buckets, it freed you up, it gave you back time, but it also moved the business in the right direction. And
Mm.
that was a critical focus point and an aha moment that I think we as leaders can all take away, from that learning. Now, let's get into some of the practical and applications, right? Like, it's good in theory, Hector. How do you actually do it? What's the first key? And the first one that I'd like to talk about is the 80-20 rule. A lot of us in business and in corporate settings, we've heard the 80-20 rule. Well, what does it say? The 80-20 says 80% of your results come from 20% of your efforts. And so focusing on that is exactly what we should be doing. So let's go to an example. Let's think about some famous individuals. Steve Jobs from Apple, right? If we think about him, he came in 1997 and he revamped the product line at Apple. He took it from dozens of products to just four core categories. And that alone returned the profit, and it had the impact for Apple to become the most valuable company in the world. Think of this as a restaurant. You go to a restaurant that has items and items, pages in a menu. Think of all the waste. Think of all the headaches. Think of all the shopping, of all the management, of all the different products that need to be carried, and the skills that need to be had in the kitchen to make all those product lines versus having a simple, clean one pager, menu line. It streamlines it. And if you think of that concept into many of your businesses, it starts to apply focus. Focus on what you do well, focus on what is impactful, and focus ultimately on what brings you the most revenue and profitability, right? So, similarly, Sarah Bakley, the founder of Spanx, and not a lot of females, but we got a couple here in the audience here today. We'll probably know that business. I spent most of her early time on two things. One was product design, and the other one was direct sales. It wasn't branding, it wasn't admin, it wasn't operations. It was two things. And by doing so, that focus turned a $5,000 savings to start the organization to a multi-billion dollar company, multi-billion dollars, right? And so 5,000 to multi-billion by focusing on two things. So starts to put it into perspective when we start to think about time management. And so rebrand it, reward it from time management to focused activity, right? That's where we want to shift this to. So as we take about that practical application approach, first sort of challenge is write down everything that you do in your business and circle 20% that directly drives revenue, growth, or customer loyalty. Those three things. What would that look like if you just put that down? And then relentlessly reduce the rest. Attack it like Pac-Man. Just eat it up, get rid of it, move it out until you focus specifically on your niche, on the things that you do really well that drive the result, right? So again, focused on what matters. So Willie, come back to you, right? So if you could think of a time that you picked the top 20% activities that drove that 80% success at your company, what would that be?
Yeah, when I think about it, the two things I think was landing and keeping the right customers is number one,
Mhm.
and building a solid leadership team. 90% of your headaches usually come from chasing the wrong clients, and once you focus on the top 20%, the high value, reliable customer revenue then stabilizes. And the same with people. Hiring strong managers freed me up from the day to day, and I could focus on growing the business. And I always got a report from my accountant saying, okay, who are our top 20 customers in the last 3 months? And so he would always print me a list, and that's was my focus then, to focus on the top 20%. And I can tell you we got a lot of results out of that, focusing on the top 20 customers.
It really did because it helped create stability and consistency in the business. By focusing on the top 20%, we're able to build processes and equipment needs and service offerings that were, specific for that base that allowed it to grow. And then you were impactful in disrupting that service areas that Willie's Trucking was in. So I thought that was a great example. Willie, appreciate you sharing that. Now, as we move on, we'll share another tool that helps, quantify activity and help you make those decisions. You may have heard of it before. It's called the Eisenhower Matrix. It's a fancy word, fancy term for saying urgent versus important. So that's the next tool. as we think about it, urgent versus important. And what is it? How is the breakdown? Urgent equals demands your attention now, like today, like not tomorrow, like now. And important actually moves the needle long term. So understanding the difference is the first concept of this tool. And then breaking it down into quadrants. So quadrant number one, urgent and important. So what's an example of an urgent and important? A client fire, a client problem. That's urgent and important. Closing a deal, right? Putting together an RFP, closing a deal on a new customer, that is equally urgent and important. Another one that's urgent and important, and most of us, as entrepreneurs know the pain of this, payroll. It's urgent and it's important. You cannot miss payroll, right? You
Mm.
can't do it. And I know, Willie, you're thinking about payroll. You remember those days, eh?
Yep. Yeah, I sure do.
Those were some scary days when you're like, how am I gonna make payroll? Right? Those
Yep,
those
absolutely.
those were some sleepless nights, right? But urgent and important is that first category. The second one, urgent but not sorry, important but not urgent, right? Important but not urgent. And this is systems, people development. It's important, but it's not urgent, meaning that you have to get there, you have to work on it. It moves the needle long term, but you're not going to put out the fire right now. Like the house isn't burning, the ceiling isn't coming down on you. You could give it the long view, the long range approach. Okay. The third of the quadrant is urgent, but not important. So this is, when you have low value emails or other people's deadlines. It's
Mm.
urgent because it's somebody else's requirement that it's urgent, but it's not important because it's not directly, yours in particular, right? So that's something that we have to make sure that we quantify that one. And then the fourth one, the fourth quadrant is neither. It's fluff time. It's scrolling on Instagram in the middle of your workday. It's checking in on LinkedIn posts. It's your friend's texts. It's making sure you make the NFL pool picks for the week. It's the other activity that we like to pretend doesn't exist, but does, and adds up to our day, right? And so those are the four quadrants that I'd like us to think about when we're talking about urgent versus important and quantifying those activities throughout the day so that we start to really focus on, again, what's urgent and what's important. Bill Gates was famous, as we talked about last time, for taking those think weeks, literally disappearing into cabins for days just to read, reflect, map out the future of Microsoft. But that's like the quadrant two. That's the important but not urgent. He recognized that for him, that's where he added the most value. He wasn't the guy that was going to be putting out the fires. He hired others for that. He was focused on the growth. And so he stayed ahead of his competitors because he put all his time into what would give him the most payback. And that's a concept that I think as entrepreneurs and as business unit leaders, we have to think and apply that, right? And so the practical application here is before you start your day, look at your to-do list. A lot of us have these to-do lists. How many of them get actually completed? Not a lot. But start your to-do list and sort it now in these quadrants. Instead of creating a to-do list that you just have to cross off because you think it's all task-based, again, task, activity, not priority, right? By putting them into quadrants, you can ask yourself, am I spending most of my day in that quadrant too? And if not, I'm probably reacting instead of leading. And
Mhm.
so that's a concept that is super applicable, easy for us to do. So forget your to-do list. Don't list it out, quadrant it. put it into an actionable tool that lets you have visibility on where to focus. It's like putting, a spotlight, if you would, directly into what's important. So, Willie, I know we've talked about that 80/20 rule. We talked about some of this, but what's one thing that you can relate to as we talk about prioritizing in the day, and understanding that the high value activity for you?
Yeah, I think investing in like the scorecard system um, uh, was definitely a big thing. So at first, when you kind of brought it up to, we want to have a daily scorecard tracking or things, I was thinking it as just another report. But man, over time, it changed where for us to now we had these KPIs that mattered for us to make decisions on, and based on that data, instead of gut feel, that one change had a ripple effect across the company. And you were so key on this. These KPIs need to be in place so we can manage our business.
That was it, right? And I think when we talk about implementation of the huddle and the concept behind the huddle and the KPIs that came in that time spent, in that time that the group came together and held each other accountable, it aligned and it created focus point all in one. But then it was like, go get it done. Go complete
Mm.
the activities that now require us to determine urgent versus important. And we did this every single day at 11 a.m. And I know we've talked about that concept here before. And if you haven't heard it yet, go back and check out one of our podcasts. It's on there. But it was a key concept that we implemented to drive alignment and get results. And also it created us some time back because it gave us a focus point from a firefighting or wasting time doing other things. We knew what was the priority by reviewing the KPIs and by reviewing that daily activity point.
Mm.
Thanks, Willie, for sharing that. So now as we move into some like practical application, what could that be, right? So some examples are email batching. I know a lot of you maybe might have your emails and they're like 100 more a day. Are you able to create these into sections? Customer emails, internal emails, and then even break them down further to specific emails from certain people so that you know which are the emails that you should be moving to and responding to quickly. And those are what are the ones that could wait for a future response time, right? As we said last time, no one's ever died because you didn't respond to an email in 2 hours, right? Like it's not urgent per se, right? Unless it is classified in your quadrant as urgent. Then you can move in, then you can respond, then you can do that. But just having them all open and then responding to them as quickly as they come in doesn't mean that you're using the best of your time. So that's one concept that I think we could talk about. You know, the a no response set like a no response policy, or talk about, hey, during these times I'm blocking them off for this specific activity, also starts to align and to create focus point for you to look at what's important, right? So again, we're going to move into some of the time and strategy portion of this. So as you think of time management, it isn't about squeezing in more. A lot of people take that as the first initial concept is, I only have 10 hours. How much more can I put into this day? And then all of a sudden you go from 10 to working 16, 18 hours because you're trying to squeeze in more. It's about aligning your hours with your goals. That's what we're trying to get across here today. If your top goal is revenue growth, spend 70% of your time on sales, marketing, and customer experience. If your top goal is scaling, go put 70% of your time on systems, leadership development, and processes. right? The best leaders live this way. They measure success not by how many boxes they've checked off or how many to-dos they've crossed off, but how much closer they're getting to their ultimate mission. How much are they moving the needle every day?
Mm.
So that's the concept today as we moved and talked about time management for impact. This is about getting it done, right? We talked a lot about that early on as we started this was get shit done because we call ourselves the doers, right? We're the doers and we're going to come out here and get that needle moved, not talk about moving it, not having meetings about doing it, but actually prioritizing and then getting it done. So here's your action in sort of challenge for the next week. Audit your week. Write down every task. At the end of the task, ask yourself, was this high impact or low impact? Was it urgent or was it important? You'll be shocked at what your answers may be. You'll be like, you might have an aha moment at the end of that session or at the end of the week, and then commit to cut or delegate. Cut or delegate just 10% of your low value work and
Mm.
replace that time with high impact activity. We're not telling you use your gained time to go add more activity that's nonsense or go golfing or go do something that isn't like impact activity. Now, if the golfing is with customers and it's going to bring your revenue up, that's an impact activity. But what I'm saying is use your time towards impact, right? Remember, your time is your most valuable asset. Protect it, multiply it, and use it for impact. That's what we're talking about today, Al. So we'll pass it right back over to you.
Is there any way possible that I can somehow figure out how to get social media scrolling up onto the urgent or important quadrant? I just don't know, bro.
Absolutely. You know how it is, Alan? You buy stocks and shares
Oh,
on
I see. I see.
Instagram or Facebook.
Yeah, yeah,
You invest in
exactly.
them, you drive their profitability, which drives your profitability.
Yeah, yeah. You know, again, Hector, you never let us down. You always bring good, solid stuff to the table. No, it's not stuff. You just bring good, solid, implementable strategies to the table for us. And I love the fact that, you're blunt enough and you're honest to say, if we're just not getting shit done, what are we doing? We're not, go close the door.
That's it.
Let's quit,
That's it.
pretending. So
Yeah.
and I love it, and I love the fact, you said put your to-do list into the quadrant. I love that, it for me it now it takes my all my things that I think I have to do and it puts it into a visual. I'm a visual guy. So now,
Right.
oh no, that's a pretty darn good idea. If I take my to-do list and I call mine my most important task to accomplish list. But whatever, if I take that and I put that into the quadrant, now it puts a visual representation on it. I love that. And I go, oh yeah, there's that darn thing down there in the fluff quadrant, whatever. So excellent as
Yeah.
always. And so even though, I had myself on mute, I was under my breath, I was going, amen, brother, amen, amen. But I didn't want everybody to hear it because then somebody would probably think they got to pass the offering plate because we're in church or something like that. Anyway, good stuff. So, folks, as you know, this is the time. This is now your time. This is your time. Well, the whole hour is your time, but this is specifically your time. I have to guess that there's got to be somebody, and probably somebodies, that has some questions, that needs some clarity when it comes to this subject of time management, especially time management for impact. I know I'm just going to make a wide brushstroke, and I apologize if I'm going to insult you, but you know me, it's just a matter of time that I'm going to insult you. But I'm sure that nobody on the call is getting it exactly right yet. We've got room for improvement when it comes time, for the time management thing. I'm going to guess. I know I do. So I'll put my first. So now's the time. Put your hand up if you want to ask a question. If you need some hot seat coaching, guess what? Hector's going to hot seat coach you. If you got say, hey, what would you do in my situation? Here's what's going on in our organization. Here's a situation that I'm facing. Bring that to the table. Ask your questions. This is where now you get to grow through the implementation interpretation of what we just learned about today. So nothing special. You don't have to put your virtual hand up. You can just wave your actual hand. Jason, if you're afraid that your camera is frozen up, then just unmute and go, hey, and hey, it'll be your turn.
Hey, Hector, one thing that comes to mind for me is how do you know what's important or not urgent? I used to think everything was important and urgent, so I was doing everything.
Yeah, and that's a good one, Willie. And I think it's about quantifying what moves the needle, right? If we think about the urgent and an important a sort of example that was given earlier, urgent requires activity today and now, and it may move the needle somewhat. It'll put out the fire, but the important quadrant is that one that is more long term. It has long term effect, and so
Hmm.
you want to, put that into the bucket of I have. It's going to take longer to solve, and it's not necessarily burning down the roof. That's important.
Hmm.
Urgent, it's quick, it requires fast action, and it is like the roof is burning. It's coming down on us now. So
Hmm.
before you think everything is urgent, identify it. Like take a moment and really break it down. And if you think of it in that concept, is the roof falling on me? No. Can it wait? Is this something that is going to possibly require me to think about the long-term effect? So I need to really think about it before just reacting. Then it falls on the important category.
Hmm.
Does that make sense, Willie?
Yeah, and then maybe share some things around what are some examples what is important. Like to me, there's some things that come to mind that I had no idea that they are actually important and they weren't even on my list to do. So, are there some things that you think about around that?
Yeah, for me, important, and it takes time and it takes a lot of effort, is culture. Ensuring that
Hmm.
the culture in your organization is right. And it takes a lot of nurturing, and it takes a lot of time from you and your team members to get it right and to get it so it's cohesive. So you'll feel like you're putting so much of your time into it, but it's under the important category, not urgent.
Yeah. Well, that was exactly what I was hoping you would say because in the beginning I never thought about that being important and then the second thing to that was like the EOS system that we implemented into our business. Now I see that being one of the top important pieces in order to get your culture in the where you want it to go.
Totally. Structure,
Yeah.
right? The structure and framework in which your organization functions, whether that is EOS or other applications out there. There's the lean methodology, there's the ISO 9000 methodologies. There's all kinds of programs. We prefer EOS. I think EOS is the best one myself because it's the most it's the most that's relatable, easy to plug and play. But there are many. However, you're right, Willie, in like the process and the that comes with the structure piece is something that is very important to put some time into.
Yeah. No, thanks for the clarification there because I felt like maybe there's some others in the room thinking like what is the important pieces and I know early on, yeah, all those things that or I shouldn't say all the things, but a bunch of the things I saw are that I see now are important. At that time I wasn't thinking about at all early
Yeah,
on in building the business.
yeah, that's totally understandable. And and it takes unfortunately the 14 to 20-hour days for long periods of time until you realize. But here's the good news is those that are here today get a shortcut. They
Yeah.
get a cheat code, right? They get a cheat code because they're coming here and they're listening to this. So we want to just point that out.
I would have never guessed that talking about this subject would have tied to culture.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. It's but
Mm.
Al,
It makes all
think
the
about
sense
all.
in the world. Makes all the sense in the world, but I'm not so sure, outside of the call today that I actually would have connected the dots.
Yeah, but
That was kind of a light bulb for me.
think of all the time and effort that you waste as a leader managing people, managing their time, managing their output if you don't have the right culture.
Yeah. You know,
You're oh, go ahead.
when you said, well, Willie, you were making your comment, a question arose for me, and so either of you can tackle it. And it's kind of like, well, even if it's urgent and important, so if I find that there's a task that's one of the two, it's either it's urgent or it's important, is it still always up to me to do it? Because kind of where I come from, I think about, well, I look at my role, in my role as the CEO, or in my role as the president, or in my role as the whatever my role is, um, you know, what are the things that only I can do, and what are the things that only I should do? And if it meets those two criteria, I don't step outside of that. So if
Yeah.
it's urgent and important, what if it doesn't, is it still up to me to look after it? What if it's somebody else's urgent and important? And I just delegate automatically.
Take the example of Bill Gates, right? And Steve Jobs. They recognized where they added the most value,
Good.
where they were the most impactful. And that's what they did. If it didn't line up with those parameters, it was delegated. It was moved on to somebody else. And as business owners on this call and as leaders, you have that capability. You have people that report to you. So learn to use the delegation button often, because that's what's going to ensure that you're focusing on the right things for
Yeah.
you and for your business.
I love that. Thank you. That's right on the money. No, that's not even right on the target. That's in the middle of the target. That's a bullseye. So I'm going to ask one more question, then I'm going to do my best to bite my tongue and let Andrew or Philip or Peter or James or Grace or Jason or Pam or somebody to ask a question. And it's this. Hector, in your teaching, you said that we need to learn how to quantify what goes into our four quadrants. So
Mhm.
how do I quantify what's in my quadrant? And then, can you give me a real world example, either you or Willie, of how you actually quantified that?
Yeah, and again, using the concepts that we talked about, urgent and important, important but not urgent. I would look at this as what is it that's going to require, me. Like if I look at this role, say a customer's called, right? Customers called, they are saying we missed the load. As a trucking example, we missed the load. Okay, we missed the load. It's urgent, but I'm not going to be the first point of contact and response to that customer. The manager that is responsible for that area, they need to be the ones that will be responding first. It's important to me to ensure that we learn and remove the error. So I'm going to focus on the strategy and the learnings, the application, the process. That's where my time is going to go. The urgent response, the cleanup effort, the making it right for the customer, that's delegated to the responsibility of the individual who is monitoring that load. That's how I would show an urgent versus important type of activity.
So when you say quantify, though, when you say quantify, so my brain, I think dollars and cents. So if I'm going to quantify what goes in a quadrant, are you using quantify as saying then I'm determining what's urgent versus important versus fluff? Or are you actually asking me to put a dollar amount to a task that would go into either urgent or important?
No, what I'm saying is I'm putting it into a quadrant.
Okay, gotcha. Just needed to
Yeah.
double, otherwise I'd have been asking myself all night long.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, Grace, do you have a question? Andrew, Philip, Peter, James, Pam, or Jason? Grace does. You're unmuting. Grace, it's all over to you.
Yeah. So actually I get the gist of like what's important with my task, but the problem with me, I would say, is more on delegating. I had a problem of of trusting myself to delegate some of my tasks, and I am ending up doing like a lot of work that I could just easily delegate to other people. The problem is I don't know if it will be done the same way as I would. I always have that thought at the back of my mind. So I will always just end up keeping it to myself.
Are you a
So
No.
perfectionist? Are you a perfectionist?
mm, I wouldn't say 100% perfectionist, but I always have that problem. I know it's a problem that I need to fix.
So I think as a high achiever and as a leader, Grace, you hit on a button that many entrepreneurs struggle with. Many. And probably everybody in this room has that same problem. How do you let go? How do you
Mm,
trust? How do you do that without you
mm,
having to come in and fix it for that person later? It takes baby steps. I'm not gonna lie to you and tell you, oh, just do it. It's gonna work out great. No, it's not. You're going to let somebody try. They're going to make mistakes, but guess what? They're going to learn because you're going to be there to support them. You're going to be there to coach them. So the best way of ensuring that the learning or the error isn't as painful is in the setup, is making sure that you communicate your expectations and that you set them up as much as you can for success. So if you're
mm,
delegating a task that you like it done a certain way, make sure that you've spent time with that person prepping them up for it. Just say, here's the task, here's the way that I do it, here's my expectations when you finish doing it. And if you need help, if you have any questions between now and when you finish, check in with me. Let me know.
mm,
Let me know if you need my help. If they
mm,
don't come to you, okay, if they don't come to you and you feel the need that you're going to jump in and you don't know where the status of this task is at and you're going to go do it, stop yourself, check in with them. Hey, just checking in. Do you need my help? How are you doing with that task? If they tell you at that point it's done or I'm struggling, there's your window to provide pivot, coach, and help and get alignment, right? But the point is that you're not the one doing it. As you progress and you do this one time, you do it 5 times, you do it 10 times, you'll get more comfortable. You'll get more comfortable because you'll trust, you'll get buy-in, you'll get the results that you're looking for if you apply those concepts the right way. And ultimately, you will let go of the vine, you will let go, and you will let somebody else take care of that task.
mm.
But it starts with preparation, communication, follow-up, and the last one, Grace, you're gonna have to trust. You're gonna have to let go. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard, right? But you're gonna have to let go. And what you find that when you do, it's going to be rewarding for you and for the individual because
Okay.
they're going to feel empowered that you're trusting them and not
Mm-hmm.
micromanaged. So you're actually building them up while you're gaining your time to
Yeah.
go focus on other stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. That's
Grace, that
really
was
good.
a great question. Like it really was. And I don't believe that every question is a great question. I think the question's an important question, but that was a great question. And Hector, you're really, I mean, that affects probably every one of us here on the call today. And it really, really does. I remember when I was uh, certifying under John Maxwell as one of his leadership coaches,
Mhm.
he spoke to us about that. He talked about that, and he said in his life anyway, what he recommends is if you've got somebody on your team that can do that task at least 80 to 85% as good as you can, if that's even proper English, delegate it to them. You can come along if you think you need to in your perfectionism and put a cherry on top later. But if somebody else can do that at least 80 to 85% as good as you can, get it off your plate.
Mm.
Yeah, totally.
Put it on their urgent or important list.
That's right. Put it
Yeah.
into their quadrant.
That's exactly right. Good contribution. I love that. Who else is next? Andrew, have you got something for us today? Philip, a question. Peter, Jason, again, you little froze up there, but hey, you can just unmute and yell at us, and we'll let you have some time. This is your time. How about Pam or James? James, you probably face this issue all the time in your operation. You got a good size operation going.
Hey,
Hey, James.
yeah. Well, I don't know. I guess we're Yeah, for us right now, when we're talking of time, I think the majority of my time is we're in the process of scaling, so it's systems. Trying to figure out which systems to use, what'll work best. Stuff that will actually move the needle, not just be a waste of paperwork and a whole bunch of time and effort.
That's right. And is that where you're spending your time, James?
That's where I'm spending my time. Yeah, that's me and Willie had a meeting today, so that was our whole meeting was what are we going to implement and which ones are we going to go with?
There you go. Perfect. So it aligned with your meeting with Willie today. That's great.
Yeah.
Good stuff. I like it. I like it.
Yeah,
That's
James had an interesting issue today. If I may, James, share a little bit where he asks, why does a job go sideways when you just get a new customer and you really want to please the customer? And I said, it used to be like that at our trucking business. The first shipment that a new customer would ship, something would go sideways. And
Yeah.
and you know what? I said, I know that feeling so well, but I said, I think God sometimes let that happen so we can build a deeper relationship right off the bat with the customer.
He gave you some pain right off the bat, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's important as you talk about scaling systems and processes. Remember the customer experience call that we had.
Yes.
Remember that,
Mhm.
right? There was some learnings on the customer experience as you're building your your processes and your systems. Your customer experience focus will ensure that your processes and systems eliminate pain points so your first activity won't be a disaster. So that's my coaching on that one. If we look at that versus, what's the next SOP? What's the next activity that we have to write and process and teach? That's a lot of time waste. Focus on what's not going to be painful for your customer. And then you build out that way,
Yeah, for sure.
right? If you can think of it in that application, it'll give you 20% of the 20% activity, it's going to give you 80% bang return,
Truly.
right? So does that makes sense, James?
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Good. I hope that you apply it and let me know. I'm curious. I'm always excited to hear how your business is doing.
Yeah.
All right. Why don't we go to Philip? Philip has a nice sized business up there in Lake Creed. I like to hear more from you, Philip.
Hey, how's it going?
Good.
Yeah, I guess a lot of it that I was concentrating on this week was what we talked about last week. So I was
Mhm.
definitely able to delegate a lot of the stuff and empty my plate a little bit. So a lot of it was the way I did my calls, and a lot of it I moved over to my lead hands, I should say.
Oh, nice.
Worked a
Excellent.
lot better.
Excellent. So you're finding that you've got some time back in your week, in your day,
Lots
or
of time back. Yeah, lots. Yeah.
okay. So what are you going to do with
And
that time back?
Yes.
oh, figure out some more stuff to do, I guess.
Right? But the takeaway today is focus on activity that's impactful for your business, right? So if you've got, let's say you got 5 hours back in your week, and where would those 5 hours be spent for Philip? Like where would you be most impactful to put those 5 hours to work at?
Probably in learning more stuff is probably right now what I would like to do.
Okay. Learning more
Like more,
application.
yeah.
Nice. Awesome. That's excellent. Knowledge is power. And if you're learning more, that will enable your organization to be better off, more efficient.
But going back to what I think Grace, as it was
Yeah.
saying, I could kind of fuel with her for the simple reason because this last week it was I was going to hand over some stuff a little more stuff over to my guys there with some of the things that was going on, and he was like, "So what if I mess all of this up?" I said, "I think it won't matter. At the end of the day, it's what I'm not there. he's been doing it a long time. So whatever your call is, I'm good with it. If it goes wrong or not. And I felt like what it did is the trust really went up, and the I think it felt like it opened the relationship up or something. I don't know what it did.
It's exactly that. You built trust, you know,
So
by
I think he felt like he was more confident to make a decision, and that I'd be cool with it whichever way it went. It wasn't a game changer at the end of the day still, or like, you know what I mean? But it made a big difference and it saved me a lot of time.
That's amazing. That's really good to hear, Philip, that you're trying, right? We're all, myself included, I struggle, right? We struggle with it, and it takes time and effort to get it to be really good at it, because delegating is not as easy as we know as it sounds. You have to
No.
find the right person to delegate the task to. It has to fit what they're good at and what you may not be as good as to do it. And maybe you are equally as good, but your priority shouldn't be there anymore. So now you got to delegate it. So finding that person is important.
See, I think actually that's just the opposite with me. I think he's maybe better at it than me, and I should have just, I think, given it over in the first place, and it's probably more of his gift than it's mine. So
No way. Those, I love those stories, because when you hear about that, it's two-part. It's recognition in your strengths, which is super good as a leader, right? And then secondly, it's the development and empowerment of that other person in your team. So it's a win-win in both, you know, for your organization, because now you get to do what you're super good at and excited about,
yeah,
and you get to grow your people.
yeah.
So
Those
that.
between employees and their teams and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good, Philip. Well, I'm excited to hear more about your business as we meet here week to week. We got time for one, two more, Al.
Well, yeah,
Who else can we go to?
we can eat up the last couple of ones. I just want to make a comment in regards to that last conversation with Philip. You know, Philip, you say, well, geez, your first reaction when Hector asked you, well, what are you going to do with this new time that you got freed up for yourself after you delegate? He said, well, I don't know, maybe some learning. And so I'm going to put a little commercial in here, a little wink, wink, Willie. You know, isn't there a platform somewhere that has a really great library where we could go and learn some really fabulous stuff? Like, isn't there something along the lines of an optimized business systems website somewhere we can go?
Absolutely.
You should tell us what that link is.
Yeah, no, just go to optimizebusinesssystems.com and yeah, for those people that aren't in our community yet, you can sign up to join the inner circle.
Absolutely. And those that are catching us on podcasts now, optimizebusinesssystems.com. Did I get that right, Willie?
That is correct.
Absolutely right on. So, Philip, there's a good place for you to go ahead and get started. And I'm going to step on Hector's feet a little bit here. Yes, he said knowledge is power, and I say no, it's not. Knowledge is useless, because we could take every course ever produced and read every book ever written, and all that knowledge would still make us useless unless we applied it. So, you know, knowledge is potential power, but it's applied knowledge that's power.
There you go. Thank you. I like it. I'm gonna take that one. I'm gonna use it.
All right. Does anybody else want to chime in before we sign off here at the top of the hour? Everybody's scared now. They're like, no, no way, not after that.
No.
We're all signing off. Well, then maybe it's time for us to go. Now, Hector, just want to reiterate, you did give us some homework to work on this week. If I got it right, your challenge is for us to audit our week and to look at all the different activities and the tasks that we have ourselves doing and make a list of those and identify them as high impact and which ones are low impact and which ones are urgent and which ones are important and which ones are maybe fluff, and then commit to, you know, cutting or delegating the ones that maybe we need to give to somebody else, that it becomes urgent or important for them, but it frees up our time to be a little bit more impactful, or maybe even a lot more impactful in our organization. Did I get that right?
You got it right, 100%. The one thing I'd add is, when you're looking to cut or delegate, start small. Start at like that 10%, something that, you know, will be, you know, free you up, but it won't be like you're going to get a week back. You're not going to get 20 hours back. You're not going to get that kind of impact, but you're going to get some time back, right? So start small and then move to continue to get really good at that. And that's what's going to ultimately shape up your day with real priorities.
Beautiful. Well, again, we thank you all for coming to join us here in the Inner Circle group, because it would be a pretty boring call if none of you showed up. So thanks for being with us today on the Inner Circle group. Thanks for those of you that are listening to us on the Inner Circle podcast. We do this at the same time, same station every single week. Come and join us. We look forward to having you with us in the room. On behalf,
thank you, folks. Appreciate it. Have a good one. Take care.
On behalf of Hector and Willie and me, Coach Al, have a great one.
Thanks. Take care.
Thank you
Bye.
very much. Thank you.